The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Podcast. It is yet another edition of The Big Issue. And of course, without taking much of a time, the big issue of the day is the assessment of the impact of the SARS protest 1 year after. And of course, with me here in the studio to interrogate the big issue of the day are our in-house analyst. We have Silas Ezegu as usual.
You're welcome.
And of course, GK is here.
Thank you for having me.
And I am your regular host. Jojagba is the name. 1 year ago, precisely on October 20, 2020, Nigerians across the states of the Federation took to the street protesting what they call brutality by the anti-robbery squads of the Nigerian Police Force and its subsequent disbandment. Nigerians started what could be described as the biggest campaign against police brutality in the country. And of course, this led to the disbandment of SARS. And although the campaign started on social media, Nigerian youth eventually took to the streets in some parts of the country to protest against the now disbanded SARS. And of course, in the course of the protest, donations were made from different parts of the world. And of course, with the mass sharing of information on social media, some of the protesters that were jailed secured bail with the support of other protesters. Some others detained for months, including Kemisola Oguniyi, an 18-year-old girl who said she was not part of the protest in Akure, Ondo State. She gave birth to a baby while she was in prison for 8 months. Today is exactly 1 year after that incident. Still, there are claims that more people are still in detention over the protest. Of course, a non-governmental organization said about 33 persons are still being detained in Lagos alone over the SARS protest. While today, in most states of the Federation, Nigerians went out again to stage a peaceful protest in commemoration of this incident that took place in October last year. And of course, feelers from the state has it that the police has been disrupting most of the peaceful protests staged in commemoration of the SARS protests that took place last year. And of course, today we are going to discuss the impact of that particular protest as it has to do with police brutality. Well, Silas, I think where we should start from now is to look at police brutality. Has anything changed after that protest that took place last year?
To say nothing changed would be to not put the whole thing in the correct perspective. I think there has been a kind of some change, but what you need to ask, how much change did happen when it comes to the issue of police brutality? As if to commemorate the issue, we discussed yesterday about because the trending video of police brutalizing and extorting some passengers on the Okene to Tedo Road.
Coincidentally, that incident just happened
around this,
this
as if it was as a part of the video to mark
reminder.
Yes, that we're not yet out of the woods yet.
Yes.
Okay, so but I must say that the intensity of the brutality, okay, this widespread nature of it may have reduced a bit, okay, but it doesn't mean that it has disappeared. Those who come contact the police will tell you that those guys are still the way they are. I believe that because at that point, stories of People being chased off bridges because they were wearing a earring and carrying a laptop on a bag sack, or maybe using a earphone or something. They just see them and start chasing them. In fact, I remember one guy in Lagos, a student, who jumped off the bridge and broke his leg. When they saw he had broken his leg, they just left him and went away. That's okay. If he broke his leg, doesn't mean he didn't commit an offense again. That you can go down and arrest him if you actually have something on him. So, but uh, uh, we're still not out of the rules. Only that the level of killings, in those days, if you have an issue of rent issue, they went and call SARS. One of my cousins said when he finished serving his master, an apprentice, for the man to start telling him he want to invite SARS to him to torture him for days to know where he took his money. And then SARS is anti-robbery. And robbery is a violent thing. And then begin to settle cases of land case, apprenticeship case, husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, and they use maximum brutality. Whoever wants to pay them, the other person is in trouble.
It's not only that, even a situation where somebody thinks because he's a girlfriend to one of the SARS operatives, joke with, they'll go
You can call them.
see what will happen to that.
Yeah, so, and then a lot of people got missing. In fact, why I'm saying that, I think that the intensity of the reports coming, or the way they were brutalizing and killing people, it's not becoming in that kind of magnitude.
Until this last weekend, when we heard of
Yeah.
what happened along the mean,
Yeah, but the scale then was too much.
Highway.
I thought the scale of that, those, and the magnitude of what was happening, the speed of it, that forced people to say, no, this is too far. We can't do it again. Okay, so the thing is still there, but somehow I think it's a bit reduced.
Okay, educate what actually has happened to, because from the feelings we've heard, the incident that happened over the weekend where police officers were beating a young man and even had to force him to go and withdraw money from POS, even when they could not get an account to put it. They had to force the young man enter Okada, took him to the bank for him to withdraw money from them. And we heard that on the orders of the IGP, the police commissioner could be arrested. What is the situation going far with this?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate coming from the facts that we are talking about NSAS, which is exactly 1 year, and we have that situation in Kogi. I think it's a bad one, but thank God for police intervention and the way they handled it. The IG gave a directive, and the Commissioner of Police in Kogi arrested those guys. In fact, the 3 junior officers were prosecuted immediately on the room trial. It's been under investigation because the CP has no right. So I think it's a good one the way they handled it. It shows that Nigerian police is not giving any room for some barbaric attitude they get. It's a pointer to a good direction. But personally, I would not say we are out of the woods yet, because the NSAS they were demanding for total police reform. Have we achieved that? The answer is no. In fact, what has been done since then? Nothing.
Yes, what I want to really even ask you now is that after the protest, that's the incident that gave rise to that hashtag NSARS, the SARS unit was disbanded. How has the disbandment impacted on the relationship between the police and the Nigerian citizens?
The situation now is that we have more civil way of dealing with the people.
You really think so?
Not what I'm trying to say is this. Before we had these SARS people who felt that they are beyond anything, they can do anything and nothing will happen. You see them with tax everywhere, arresting people who are wearing dreads, who are wearing earrings. Meanwhile, physically looking at them, you're seeing that human being. But because they claim they are SARS. But now we have coordinated way, though they are still doing some of these small evils that were noticed before, but it's not as porous, just like Mr. Salah said. It's not as porous as we used to have before, but we still have element of that. We still have the problems here and there.
Well, some of the panels set up by the state to probe incidents have submitted their report, while others are yet to do so. What is the state government doing now? Because we've not heard anything about compensation for the victims. Although we heard that some of them have been compensated, they have even submitted names, published names of the victims that benefited from that compensation. Are we thinking that the compensation alone is enough, Silas, when at the end of the day, we have not heard anything about prosecution of some of those people that were involved, especially the SARS officers and some military personnel too that were involved in that protest?
For now, I cannot really say how much of the compensation that's been given out. Okay, depends on what the police they are saying, and I know that some cases are yet to be resolved. Okay, and some of the conditions are big enough. So I know that I don't think that they will consider everybody, but part of the healing process, to get justice is that they want. One of the demands is that they want the guys, the police men who went overboard to be prosecuted, for the crimes against humanity that they committed. And we've not seen a lot of that happening yet. And justice delayed is justice denied. That's one of the demands they made during the protest. There are five of them. They also wanted, apart from just disbanding the NSAS, the SARS group team, they also wanted them to be psychologically, analyzed and debriefed, so that they will. Well, so that we remove that mentality they have from them before they can pose them to. Because if you pose them to another place and they still carry that same mentality, even if the person is posted to a desk job, he will, he will approach that job with some level of aggression and violence. If you come and meet him there, you're in trouble. Okay, and then another thing is that being on the road, being as a tour at the time, lawless, they were making a lot of money too. If you see how they live, they are living large. Okay, and that and how do you get to live large like that? And the salary that everybody knows is by terrorizing people to the highest level to part to whatever you ask. So some of them need to readjust to the idea of not getting that kind of money. Otherwise, you will see what we saw in Okone Road of them forcing people to go to ATM, just like the criminals do these days. Them turn to Germany and give them. I don't know those people that was on that clip. You'll be sure that that's not the first time doing it. It has been practiced. Tasks I've been doing. Only that this time around, somebody captured it on video and we are seeing it. You can know that that's not the first time they're doing it. They're doing it so assuredly. That's why they were so praising about it. Okay, so it's not just enough to pay some people some money. If you kill somebody's brother or sister or husband like this, money will not pay for that. But if they want the person to pay for it by suffering some discomfort, going to jail or this, that can give some closure. But the fact that those people who did those things are still roaming around free, one arrested, somebody is calling to question, the issues are still there. The police has not gone the whole length to ensure people that the people who carried out these acts of brutality have been punished for it. Paying money will not be enough.
Well, before we continue, let's just quickly take a short break. And before we do that, we urge you, our viewer, to contribute to the big issue by your comments, which have always helped in shaping discussions on the big issue. We'll be back in a moment.
The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Welcome back. We're still on the big issue in Leadership Podcast. And of course, on the big issue today, we are assessing the impact of SARS protest 1 year after. Silas, today, well, before we go, I think we are seeing a comment there. And of course, we have Musa Isiaku Saleh. Musa Isiaku Saleh is saying no more violation of fundamental human rights by the police who corruptly trample on our rights. Yes, you can see what Musa is saying there. No more of it. And of course, the idea of the SARS protest was to actually end this abysmally. And just like you said, Silas, it has reduced to an extent. But today, from reports coming from the states, is indicating that the police were out there on the streets trying to disrupt the peaceful protest. Like in Lagos, most of the Nigerian celebrities, musicians, Fowls, Mr. Macaroni, and certain celebrities joined other Nigerians on the street on a procession, peaceful procession in commemoration of the SARS protest last year, October. With the police action today again to trample on the fundamental rights of free assembly, freedom of speech, freedom of association. Are we still saying that what the protest stood for last year has really achieved the purpose?
Yeah, I'll say it's this idea of getting democratic rights up and running, especially when it comes to issues with police. It's not going to be one of them. You understand? And it will be a work on the past. They say old habits die young, die hard. Police are used to intimidating the public. They say how that colonial mentality of the state against the people. Okay, put people into line, going to what the state wants, and then one would have thought that they learned a lesson from what happened last time, because even subsequently, what happened to the police afterwards in some parts of Nigeria where they became the object of youth assaults. Okay, their stations, roads, we feel sorry for them there, but it's possible that it is the accumulation of the angst that people have against them that you see, people taking the work to them. So they should know, they should be careful. Police are our brothers, they are friends, they are relatives. Okay, well, as a unit, they need to be careful with the public, because if they give out this impression that they are on one side and the public on the other side, and they say police is your friend. So one battle has been fought by pro-democracy and civil society is that the police must not demand a permit before you can protest. It's a democratic right to protest. When you are aggrieved over something, you don't need to go to the police. You can inform them to provide security and whatever, but it's not it's not a question of getting a permit. They're going to come there and make sure that where your self rights, you do not, and your freedoms, you do not encroach on the rights of others. For example, you don't need to block the road or cause business to shut down because you are angry. Do your own person and go. But allow people who are not part of it to also exert the right of movement and the economic rights and whatever. Okay, so if as they went around and did it today, it shows that the battle is not over. It may not be violent again. Even if it was only last time, the protest was peaceful until some foreign element introduced violence. Introduced violence to it and started attacking those who are protesting. No, if you do not like the idea they are canvassing, for instance, you can still your own protest and say, okay, I don't support this thing, I am on it. But it's not for you to go instead of attacking those who are having a particular opinion. You understand? You are infringing on their rights, and the police you are there watching and enjoying the show. And of course, the whole thing culminated in more violence, and then of course the toll gate issue happened. Like the government today wanted to shut out protests by all means on that spot. You know, the last has not been heard about the toll gate issue because they're still investigating it. But the police need to understand that the ways of doing things maybe it will take them time to adjust to it, but it can't just stop it from protesting peacefully. You know, it is this. It is a fight that will go on until Nigerians begin to understand that democracy, not just going to the ballot to vote, it's about having this subduing yourself to democratic ethos in every situation, like protests and so on.
Well, let's look at some of the demands because I think after that protest, there were some demands. I think the NSAS protesters brought all their demands into, encapsulated it into what they call the five something something demands. And I think some of them had to do with the demand for justice for all victims, the demand for opportunity of fair hearing for all victims, and demand for prosecution of perpetrators of brutality and extrajudicial killings. Okay, again, we have not really heard anything. Not single prosecution. Both the police and the military that were involved, even those at the Lekki toll gate.
Yeah, you see, about the Lekki toll gate, let me start from them. There is a denial. So that is why we will not have any prosecution for now because the military, the federal government keep insisting that there was no shooting, there was no killing. So until the Lagos panel finishes their investigations, we cannot say for sure. But from evidences and from people who are saying there were killings, but let's wait for the report to come out. Then on the prosecution of people who had assaulted people, officers, police officers, I think we have a few of them. Just like this Kogi case, the officers have already been dealt with. Some of them you may not hear about, but some of them have been dealt with. The compensation is coming in. The judicial panel is giving out judgments against them, giving out money to be paid. Let's wait and see whether government will pay. But I think the root causes of our problem is that the structure of our Nigerian police is that we have a situation where they believe that they can only achieve their aim through force. And until we have a change of ideology, we'll keep having the same problem. We'll keep having the same until we have a total reform, which was part of the demand for the NSAS people. It's not only about salary increments. It's not. We have to have a reform. Bring out these police together, educate them that they need to protect rather than to deal with the citizens. Until we have that reform, we'll keep having these challenges.
Yes, talking about reform, HK, I remember President Buhari too, after that protest, directed that the salaries of the police personnel should be increased. What has the police authority done? Even the police service commission, in terms of the welfare, because the argument, as you remember, was that the reasons why these police officers take to the highways and instead of doing the job for which they are deployed, they now resort to extorting from citizens, brutalizing them, using force. And of course, some innocent youngsters had even gone for it in the name of these Yahoo boys. Some of the people they caught accusing them of being Yahoo boys turned out that they were innocent. And some of the Yahoo boys, instead of bringing them to book, they go arrest them, intimidate them to collect money from them. I think everything pointed to the fact that the police is underpaid. That if something is done about the welfare of the police officers, some of these things will reduce. So what has happened in that regard?
I don't believe that the police are underpaid. I think we have the wrong information. A graduate in police cadet collects more than 100,000. In Nigerian system, we have people collecting 40,000.
You're talking of those from the rank of inspector.
Yes, a normal graduate. A private companies in NEMA, graduates collect 42,000. Nigerian Railway, graduate collect 50 something thousand. In private companies, we have 30,000, and we are not killing. They are not killing people. They are not carrying guns. I think it's just the ideology of our Nigerian system. And about the increment, I think it was just a political statement because you can't just make a pronouncement without budgetary, without going through a national revenue allocation form. Without you need a procedure to make an increment, and it must be captured in the budget. You can't just say increase the salary of over 300,000 police officers.
In other words, what you're trying to say is that since the president gave that directive,
I don't
nothing
think
has happened.
Nothing has been done about that. They need to. They can take care of their welfare. The salary has a procedure for increment.
Well, Silas, you can imagine this type of thing. At the end of the day, all the things the government will promise us are just like paying lip service. President of the country will direct it, please take, look into the salary of the police. Make sure it's increased. Because if it's done, the people will now be in a better position to discharge their duties. That was just mere political rhetoric. Nothing happened.
It's unfortunate. In the heat of the moment, the president have said that that will house tension, okay, and give some hope that something is wrong. But maybe he has gone back and seen the state of the treasury, and maybe felt he could not carry the weight of such an increase at such a time of borrowing money to even do some basic things in Nigeria. Okay, and this other one is also stalling. He had wanted to even given directive that more personnel be employed every incrementally, 20,000 a year back
Yes.
until almost to get to a particular level. So, so you felt that those are huge financial commitments, and possibly they have to rethink and find another way to maybe to get the kind of funding that they can do that. Okay, but if the president says something, it should come for something, you know. So I think that since he has promised them that, he should find a way to work with the relevant authorities, push for it, take the input of the FAC and then the Salaries and Wages Commission to look at these things and see how much they can give them, for now. But actually, Nigerians are not really paid well in what they do. It's still 100,000. If it costs 100,000, how much is that in the market now? When the cost of things has tripled and quadrupled in the last few months, it's still even though so collecting for 2,000 naira, go to the same market. If a policeman, I know many of the policemen have a lot of children. Okay, the one that has 4 children and other dependents, that money and has a gun in his hand. That money is not 20 for how much is school fees for the policeman? So the welfare that's one about is not just about salary. There should be other welfare packages that can take care of their health, their education of their children. Because these people are doing a job for which they can pay with their life at any time. And you know that once the person dies, many times even the family do not get the kind of support they need to get to carry on. So it is that money is too small compared to you need to compare what they earn to what that person earn in West Africa, in Africa and across. Now find out that even that money is too low to to compensate for this risky job they do. Let me tell you something. If there's a school crisis or a crime in place, and there's anybody's wearing uniform there, the first target for execution. They can allow the civilians to go away. If a robbery is going in a bank, the first one they kill the policeman. They don't kill a civilian either by mistake or the person is posing danger to them or disobeying them in any way. But if see a policeman in uniform, take him out first of all. So it is, it's a life and death job. And to pay him so little, if you cannot find cater for some basic things, you'll be angry at the society. And any opportunity he gets to reach that anger, you see it in extortion, in torture, in all the things you see on the road. They are angry people. You hardly see them laugh. And they need to like their work too. Because unfortunately, as for the policeman, he said they're doing a job nobody wants to do. And they're doing it because they have no option.
Yes,
So
because
that's not the right sense to do that kind of a job.
Oh.
You need to like the job you do.
What AGK told us was the salary for the cadet officers. He
Not
talking
even
of the
the-
senior ones. He has not told us about what the other ranks
Yes.
collect a salary. And these are the ones they always send to the street, send to the highways. They're the ones that will go for operations. These are the ones that will come face to face with the public. What do those ones collect, AGK? That is what we are even talking here. I think their salary is more important than the senior officers who stay in the office.
I don't really want to sound as if I am not supporting police welfare package, but I'm just putting it in perspective. If you say the salary is poor, everybody goes to the same market. What you choose to do with your life, you choose to marry 10 wives, to have 20 children, is your personal decision. We have army officers who collect almost the same thing, and you don't see them misbehaving. It's the orientation of the police, some of these policemen have, that is the problem. Look at what happened today in Lekki. Commissioner of Police gave them instruction: don't arrest or intimidate journalists and anybody going on his way protesting today. But you see some of them still doing the same thing. He came out, he apologized to the journalists, TVC reporters who was assaulted, and other people. He said, I personally told them not to do it. You see, when they have this notion that we have force, we have gun, we must execute, we must do something.
There's opportunity to make money from
Yeah,
it.
There's opportunity to make money. So you start misbehaving. That is the problem. It's not really the salary per se.
Yes, it's the mindset.
It's the mindset of these officers.
And of course, I think the final analysis, the solution to this is to see how to root out the bad eggs from the force.
Yeah, you see the problem we have is that we don't keep good data in Nigeria. Some of the people that are very positioned from here, some of them are jailbirds, ex-jailbirds, those who have served time in prison.
Yes.
And because nobody has a record of them, they will, after a few years, they come back, join the police. The person has a really criminal mind. And if you can successfully hide his former identity, you can, maybe you did the work before you got caught up in crime. And nobody, there's no record to show that this person is here.
And some of them are stark illiterate.
Some of them, so the person gets there is a really an armed robber.
They go to the villages where they are in the farm digging heaps. They carry them from there to come and conscript them into the police.
To collect their own share of
the Well, that is the much we can take for today's edition of the Big Issue. Join us same time tomorrow for another episode of this program. For now, just have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship, advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158.